So I often recommend pujas to clients. And for people from the West, particularly who've been in a bhakti type situation, they think that you do puja offering, it's just for love, and you're only doing it for love and to offer, and then you walk away all like happy or something of this nature. And there's sometimes, and it's a sometimes, a concept that you worship God just to worship God, and there's no other reason. And that is great from a spiritual perspective. But that is not why we do puja for astrological purposes. For astrological purposes, we do pujas in order to see something change in our life. And when we do rituals to deities from a spiritual purpose, our goal is to just, connect with love and deepen our life and relationship. But and sometimes people are like, well, why don't I worship the God? Like, I have cancer. Why don't I just keep worshiping? I love Shiva. I'm just going to keep worshiping Shiva. But maybe Shiva's not the deity who has the ability to cure the cancer. Or maybe whatever deity they're working with won't help them make more money in their career. So when we, from an astrological perspective, recommend a puja, we're looking at a deficit happening in the chart. We're looking at an energy that's missing. And that puja is bringing in a certain energy that isn't there at the moment. So if someone doesn't have, they're financially struggling, it will bring in the energy that they need to be prosperous. Or if they're not getting into a relationship, or having unhappiness in the relationship, this puja will help bring the energy that they need to attract a partner. Or if there's a disease, it's going to help bring about whatever cure is needed. So when we do an astrological puja, we're not doing it just for love. We're doing it very intentionally with an intention to create something different in our lives. We want to hold that intention while the ritual is done, but we need the right ritual to be done. And the astrologer's job is to recommend the right ritual. And this is called Daivya Chikitsa, or karmic medicine. And so karmic medicine ensures that the karma is being addressed that is creating the issue. And by addressing that, we have whatever is missing in our life is now able to come to fruition. So very important. We want to have an intention for the puja, and then there's two questions that I get asked that I think are really important to understand, and that's what should I expect from a puja? How do I know it worked? How do I like if and sometimes people do pujas that are overseas. So a priest does the puja, they send some money, he does a ritual, and sometimes people don't even see it live, and it completely works because daiva, or karma, you could have been in Africa in your last life creating that karma. You could have been in Russia in your last life creating that karma. You could have been in Central America. You could have been in California. Wherever you created that karma could have been anywhere on the planet. Karma is non-space related. It's a time-related condition. And when somebody is suffering, it's the time that has arisen for them to suffer, meaning that there's a fruit of a karma being delivered. And so if that karma being delivered doesn't have the nutrients that it needs to be fruitful in the way that we want it, a puja has the ability to bring in what we need to support. So what to expect from a puja? When the puja itself is done, we expect to get some type of omen, some good news, something nice happens, something well. So if a puja is being done, and whether you're present or it's being done in a distant place, that day you should expect an email with something. Oh, so and so's getting married. Oh, so and so found something. Oh, my best friend just bought a new house. Some good news indicates that the puja was successful. If instead, when a puja is done, all of a sudden a big, like, you get your new tax bill and it ends up being twice as much as you thought. That means the puja was not enough. So if something comes that wants from you right after the puja, it means we haven't given enough to feed the karma. And if some good news comes right after the puja's been done, then it means that the energy has been appeased, that we are trying to meet with the puja. So, and sometimes it can be just a little text message from a friend that hasn't written in a long time that says, thinking of you, hope you're well. That right there is a wonderful omen that the ritual has been successful. So this is, in the small moment, what we expect. In the large moment, how is this puja working? That it's changing things. I had, and so just some little stories to go along, I think will help elicit an understanding of what to expect in the bigger picture from a puja. So we have the small omen that lets us know that in that moment it worked. And in the long term, a puja generally has about a year to fructify. So within a month to a year, we'll get the results of a ritual. And in that year, so I had a client who their ascendant lord was Gandanta. It means like in this in-between place, that it's very unhappy. And so he had a big ritual done for it. And he was having a lot of difficulty at work. And he found out that his eyes were completely different. One eye was very, couldn't see, and the other eye could, and he was literally reading with one eye and not well. And so after doing the puja, he actually discovered this condition of his eyes and got proper glasses made, and it literally had to recondition his whole self to reading in a different way. And it just brought this whole new focus into his life and his workplace. And after that, he got a therapist who could understand him and actually entered into a relationship that was the first time he was being fulfilled in a relationship. So we want to expect something like this. I had another client who, after doing the puja, recommended, and the puja was for a disease, a health condition. And after the puja, they met an Ayurvedic doctor and started learning certain mantras from a teacher. And when I saw them in the follow-up, the mantra they were learning for the teacher was exactly what was indicated in the chart relative to the puja. So literally the puja brought in the teacher that helped them work with the deity that puja was from. And they had no clue that the two were connected. One of the, let's see, should I tell I had a client once who, it was 7 years, he was suffering from a health condition. And his condition, he woke up in the morning and he was nauseous and couldn't get out of bed, and he'd be throwing up, and he'd wake up sick every day. And it would wear off after a few hours, but the next day it would be there again. And so he spent over $100,000, and this is 10 years ago. So over $100,000 in diagnostics and MRIs and radiation put in him and scanned, and no one could figure out what was wrong with him. And this gentleman was an atheist. And his friend had pushed him into having a consult with me. I had him do a mantra and have a puja done. And he said, I don't believe in any of this kind of stuff. And I said, you don't need to believe in this kind of stuff. If belief was what made it work, then all you'd need to do is believe in something and throw a penny in the river and you'd get your wish. And so these rituals, they have their own function, their own energy that is being awoken and activated. So just do the mantra, have the puja done, and so luckily he did it. Even though he didn't believe in it, he trusted me enough to just do this. And about 2 months later, he wrote me And it's a funny joke because he said, your mantra and puja didn't work. I found a doctor that was figured out what was wrong with me. So 7 years, no one could figure out what was wrong with him. And then after a mantra and a puja, all of a sudden he meets a doctor who finds out he had some deficit of a enzyme to break down a certain hormone. And so when he woke up in the morning, the enzyme wasn't breaking down his hormones, and so it was creating all kinds of issues. He took a tiny little pill and he was normal. And he said, your puja didn't work. And your mantra and puja didn't work. And it's just like, so we want to understand that the puja doesn't magically just all of a sudden make the person not sick anymore. But there was some karma that was blocking him from getting the knowledge that he needed to be able to get cured, to be able to find health. And so that puja, it removed the karma that allowed the right medicine to come into his life. Just like the previous person, after the puja, they met an Ayurvedic doctor and started studying chanting of the mantra that they needed for healing. And the other person figured out that something was going on with their eyes that was messing up their head and causing all kinds of problems at work. So the last story that I like to share about the power of puja. And I recommend pujas all the time. People can't get married and I have them do a puja and they get married. People are looking for a house and not finding one. They do a puja and find the house. People are trying to sell their house. It's not selling. They do a puja and it sells. And you could say, oh, well, they would have sold their house anyway. Or, oh, they would have gotten married anyway. Or, oh, they would have had kids anyway. And yes, maybe. How do we know that they wouldn't have had that anyway? And so this one story about a well. There was an individual who bought a new property, and after about 3 months of being on that property, and they were using a large amount of water for a huge farming operation on the property, the neighbor came over to them and said, wow, your well's still working. It's normally dry by this time of year. And the person was like, what? Dry by this time of the year? They had no clue that, because they had bought the location in a foreclosure. And lo and behold, about 2 weeks later, the well started going slowly, would stop working for an hour, would stop working for 2 hours, and it was starting to dry up. So this was a big deal. And this is a well that would normally go dry around July. And in the location of this property, it was in California, and it was year 3 of a drought. So the chance of that well working again was unlikely. And so I talked to one of the priests that I work with, and I said, well, we could maybe do this, we could maybe do that. He said, we'll do a Jaladosha puja, and that should fix it. Give me some dirt from the northeast corner of the property, send it, and we'll do the Jaladosha puja. So the dirt was sent, and the puja was done, and the day after the puja, the water started working again. And it worked for the rest of the summer. And now, to me, there is no reason that well should have started working again. And yet, somehow, that ritual, it made the water come forth again. So, do we do these rituals just out of faith, just because of love? It's important to do rituals out of faith and love. But when we do an astrological puja, we're doing it for a specific reason with an intention, and we're using a particular deity to get a particular result. And the result doesn't just fall out of the sky, but the karma that was blocking this result coming into our life, it gets rearranged. And whatever blockages were happen are moved so that we have the ability to experience this missing element in our life. So I hope you enjoyed this little introduction to puja and what to expect when you order a Vedic puja that has been properly astrologically determined.